Alright guys, Tacticalrab back again today. I hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Welcome back to our pre-kickoff classic interview series. Today I'm joined by Willett of the Florida Mutineers. How are you doing, sir? Lots to dive into today. Going to keep it relatively short, but you know, kickoff classic's just around the corner. The COD scene's finally here, baby. Love to see it.
I'm doing well. I'm in Florida right now. I mean, it's absolutely pouring outside. Probably can't see it, and we're vibing.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. I mean, let's just dive right on in because I'd love to know more really about your path to becoming the head coach of Florida, right? Like it's been an interesting one because I think I guess you were recruited last year as kind of like a former player, then came in as like the assistant to the team. People said you did a great job. And then of course the tour was there last year, and this year you've got the head job. I mean, you know, like how did that kind of go?
Yeah, well, for anyone that doesn't know, like I've been competing, or I was competing for like 3 or 4 years. Like my first event was Infinite Warfare title. Basically took the next year off, and then I played up all the way into the beginning of Cold War where I wasn't like seeing the teams that I wanted to be on. So then I just decided, I always knew like when I stopped playing, I would be a good coach just because of how I was as a player. I was more of like a ratty, like methodical, like team leader type of guy. And I like remember like you making a video on one of our teams when we made BO4 champs. And that's how I knew like Awakening. That was like my connect to this team. So my first like team that I coached in the Cold War season was Triumph, which is like the team that won the year before, because that was pretty much like the only org in the challenger scene. So I knew I'd at least be getting paid. And then yeah, I mean Florida was struggling a little bit. I think they were like 9th or 10th in the standings when I started helping them out, like beginning of stage 3. And then yeah, I mean just going into this year, I mean I could speak about the roster if you want me to a little bit.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I was going to ask about that next, but far away.
Yeah, but you know, I wasn't a part of all of it, I don't think, but I can just say like what it was from my point of view. But going into this year, it was like once I got told that I was going to be the head coach, or they still wanted to have me because that was unsure going into the season. Basically, I was told that they were keeping, or like most of them were on 1+1s, which I think is like common knowledge of how contracts work in the league. So they were keeping the core 3, and then obviously Nep was getting a ton of offers after like his gameplay the previous season. So he took one of them. Obviously, went to New York, and then they were keeping the core 3. So at that point, we're in a situation where like, or at least this is what went through my head. Like, I can't speak for everybody, or like Tom or every other player, but it's like, do we get a sub to replace Nep, who was just phenomenal, and expect to get better, or do we address the issue where it's like you either get a sub and then hope Joe and Caesar, who's awakening a skyz, play a little bit better as an AR duo, or do we just allow Joe to use a sub or an AR or whatever the guns are? I mean, Vanguard, like so far, there's a lot of hills that people pull out a lot of ARs and a lot of hills where people pull out a lot of subs. It's just kind of whatever right now. So that was kind of the thinking with getting Dave, because like Dave was somebody I coached on Triumph, and he was also someone who was on like Tom's radar as like a top AR in the challenger scene. And like once people get to see him play, I mean, they'll obviously see why, but that's kind of thinking with that. And then the whole Reese thing was a whole nother thing that we didn't even expect, because we obviously wanted him to begin the off season. But I mean, I don't know if it was like super public, but his buyout was absolutely insane, and Florida was not willing to give like the budget for that. So once he got like let free, then we just knew that we had to get him because we would improve. And then that's when like the tough decision had to be made on what to do with the roster. And yeah, that's just what we went with. I mean, if I had like it all my way, I would still have Cole as a sub. But this year, everyone's living in Florida in apartments, and they have a nice facility that we go to almost every day to practice. And they were really big on having everyone live here, like currently Yeez is here. And Cole just thought it wasn't good for his career, competing online in challengers to do that. So that's where we're at.
Of situation,
I mean,
but it is what it is.
But that was kind of long, but yeah, there it is.
Fantastic. Yeah, fantastic stuff. Yeah, like I did have another question on that. First, I guess I wanted to say, like, is there any kind of advice you'd have to pros that I guess are maybe in a similar position to you were, right? Like trying to compete in challenges, not doing all that much, but want to have some sort of security or something to do after they stop competing, right? Because it's kind of, it's not particularly common that, people like yourself, right, going from being a challengers player into kind of a coaching role and doing what you've done. So I don't know if there's anything you think you did that other people could think about, because it's tough right out there.
I think at the end of the day, like in this scene, it's been around for a while, but as far as like franchising goes and like the more like coaching side of thing and general managers and stuff, it's super new. So, I mean, there's obviously a ton of luck and connects. I mean, just like the real world, on how you get these opportunities. But you just got to make the best of what you have. Like I got lucky that Triumph wanted me, and then I got lucky that I had a really close connect with Joe because he really liked playing with me, and they were struggling, so they wanted some help. And when I started helping them, I mean, I wasn't a part of the team, quote unquote, like contractually the whole year until the very end. I think Caesar
Mhm.
was literally paying me out of his pocket, like just some side change. But I mean, you just got to do what you got to do, and obviously I put a good enough impression on the team, and they thought that I helped them enough for them to want to keep me around this year. So, I mean, that's all it really is, just connections, a little bit of luck and just hard work. I mean, there's not really much to it, but I think as the franchise like grows, hopefully we get some expansion. I don't know, like if that's like a folktale at this point, but if that happens, I mean, you see all these orgs. I mean, like look at Boston that just joined. I mean, they signed like the duo of Zed and Dens. I mean, people are signing not just one coach. Their general manager. Some teams have a bunch of staff with them, so there's tons of opportunities to do it. It's just kind of just timing, hard work.
Yeah, for sure.
That's all it is. And that's just life.
Yeah, the way it's gone with the team so far as well. Like, how's Awakening fitting into that kind of SMG role? Like, we haven't got that much chance to
Mhm.
see. I think your reasoning is good, right? Just say, look, I mean, we're not going to improve if we try and upgrade for Neptune. Let's try something else.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, Dave and Sky's on the ARs. I mean, how's Awakening kind of settling into that role? Because we know he was a very adaptive player back in Modern Warfare. Like,
Yeah.
I think he was at his best when he had an MP5 and an M4 that he picked up off the ground in hand. He was deadly when that was going on.
Mhm.
So you could see it happening again.
Yeah, no, I think the kid's a beast right now. I think he's playing really well. I mean, how some of these maps are, it's just so weird. Like, looking at a map like Berlin, for example, like there's some hills, fucking 3 people are using ARs. Gavutu, the boat map, some people use 4, and then you have Bokage where you got some people even using 4 subs sometimes. Like, it's just whatever. Like Joe's always been that type of player. For anyone that doesn't know, like uses whatever gun he wants, pretty much. Like he's good at anything, in my opinion. And I think it was just a disappointing end of the last year when I started helping them because I mean the first stage 3 they made winners. They didn't do so well in the bracket, but the next 2 stages, I mean, I don't know if people remember, we were beating top teams in the I forget what they were called, like the
The home
seeding.
series they were called.
Yeah, those
Yeah.
matches. Like we started off 3-0 in both, and we just failed to make winners. It was just kind of let down, we kind of crumbled a little bit, and yeah, so I think people have a bad rep or like a bad memory of how good we actually were when we were peaking. Like speaking from someone that was in scrims every day, I mean, we were beating everyone down pretty bad. Obviously, given your phase and your higher teams, but we could beat the best for sure. It's just a matter of translating that, and that's kind of why that's what I'm focusing on this year is getting it to be a point where we perform our best, given the match days, the brackets, this kickoff. So that's just what I'm focusing on right now. I think it helps a lot, like being in person too. I'm just spewing, by the way. I don't know
Oh,
if this
this
is
is
cool,
good.
but no, it's really good being in person because we've played like at our homes already this year, like when we went back for holiday, and you can just tell instantly like a major difference in the amount of focus and like just being in the same room. Shout out to Florida, like Ben, John, and Tom for allowing us to live here. The facility's great. Like being in the same room and being able to look at someone and criticize them or like ask them why they thought a certain way on a certain play, it just helps like tremendously. And I think that's something that will go a long way this year.
Yeah, I can feel that for sure. I mean, let's
Mhm.
go into the kickoff classic then, because of course,
Mhm.
game one is against Los Angeles Guerrillas, I
Yeah.
believe.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one. Like, it's tough to say. Like, have you guys practiced much against them? Like, how's your preparation going into this game?
Mhm.
I guess you guys are confident.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't scrimmed them a ton. I think the last time like the coaches scheduled the scrims, people are trying to dodge like whoever they play first round, obviously for obvious reasons. But I think we're looking pretty good. I mean, it's just hard to tell right now because of the issues with the third game mode. So like no one really knows what's going to be in a series. But I mean, everyone does have a pretty good gist of like how good they are. I think every year in scrims, it does say for the most part how good a team is. Sometimes you'll have a team like outperform those results or the opposite. But I think we're looking good, and I'm really excited for our S&D too because I just think we have a lot of good S&D players on the team.
Yeah, and
So
that's something that's kind of hard to read into, like, a power
yeah,
rankings or whatever, right? Or
mhm.
predictions, because we only, at least from the outside, we just get
Just
to see
hard point.
hard points pretty
Yeah,
much, right?
yeah.
Doesn't always tell the whole story, but that's really the final question I had. Like, if you had to put together a top 5 team list right now, you can either include Florida or not to. But what would you do? Because I said this the last one we did, but to start the first ones we did, I was like, look, everyone gives a different answer to this, which they generally do. But it's been remarkably consistent which teams people are most, I guess, scared of or most excited to beat, I guess, at the major or the kickoff. What do you reckon the top 5 are?
I can talk about top 5 in my opinion. I mean, I'm just not gonna include ourselves because I'm just not that type of guy. But I mean, obviously you have FaZe. I haven't really seen much of Toronto because they have been back in Europe like for the holidays. I know they're back now, but I can't leave them out just because I know how their like team works and the type of people they have on it. So I don't ever feel like they're gonna be out of a top team discussion. What are the teams we got? I'm trying to think of the teams.
You got 3 more slots to fill. I'm not gonna.
I mean, I feel like you have to leave Minnesota in there. I don't think they've had the best results, like scrim results, but they won a major last year. I think they just have a lot of like team chemistry. I don't know what other teams are there. I'm gonna pull up a list. I don't even remember.
It's a big name you're missing, but
This is a big name. I mean, you got to put New York in there probably with the roster that they were able to build this year. And I just have a lot of confidence in Travis.
I was thinking OpTic, but
Oh yeah, OpTic. No, OpTic's in the top 5 for sure too. Yeah, we've been playing them
because kind of the way you're describing it is like, well, I don't know. Some people have done it from your angle, where it's kind of like, okay, the team with the chemistry and how they should be playing, like they should be up there, which is kind of how I did my power rankings for the season. But some people have said, like, based on how things have looked the last several weeks, like, would that change your opinion on like a Minnesota or a New York if you just base it on like how these teams have played against you in practice, or is it actually kind of similar?
I think it's like a mixture. It's like a cocktail of it. But like, I think it plays a little bit of a part, like how they've been doing in scrims and how they're looking in this COD, obviously. But I just think that there's some things that, when you have a roster like New York, you have the veteran players and you have obviously the talent that you need because they picked up, Nep and Hydra. I just don't think you can really count them out of like a top 5 list or like a top team list. But yeah, no, OpTic's looking really good too. I think, having Shotzzy, like, I think people don't understand the amount of like routes and like just ratty gameplay he does in this game. That really helps his team win. And then obviously talent's not the issue. But yeah, I mean, those are just some teams.
That's a good one for sure.
I don't have like the top 5, but those are just some teams I respect a lot.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, anyway, thanks so much for your time. That was a cracking,
no problem, man.
Cracking little interview. And well, yeah, anything you'd like to say to the Florida fans going into the coming season?
Yeah, I mean, just real quick, I'm pretty sure I already gave him a shout out, but big shout out to the Florida organization this year, like Ben, Tom, John. Having us all together, I think, is going to be a big, factor in our success this year. And obviously the fans. I mean, they're the only reason that we're even allowed to do this as a living. It's literally an absolute blessing that we get to do this. But yeah, I mean, the kickoff I think is important. I don't think it's an end all be all, but I think it's good for like team morale. I think there might be a possibility like if someone has a really poor performance, like some team might make a change on it. I don't know, but we're just gonna give it our best. Hopefully the season goes well, and that's all I got. But thanks for having me on here.
No problem at all. Thank you very much for your time. Thanks all for watching as well. Take care of yourselves. We'll see you next time.